Hey everyone, in this video, we'll set up controller input so that we can control the player with joystick. So if you connect the joystick and test the game, you can see that we are able to move the player using the left analog stick, but we are not able to control the camera rotation using the right analog stick. All right. So if you look at the player controller script, here we are using the horizontal and vertical input to move the player. So Unity automatically sets up the horizontal and vertical input for the joystick. So that's the reason why we are able to move the player with the joystick. So you can actually see the input setup in the project settings. All right, so if you go to project settings and select input manager, here you can see all the inputs that Unity defines by default. So here we have horizontal and vertical, and over here we have another horizontal and vertical input, right? So they are defined 2 times. So the first one is defined for the keyboard. So here it uses the left and right keys. And the second one is defined for the joystick. All right. Here it uses the x-axis of the joystick. So like this, we should set up all our inputs for the joystick. So we want to be able to control the camera using the right analog stick, right? So if you look at the camera controller script, right now we are just using the mouse X and mouse Y input for controlling the camera. So instead of this, we should set up a new input over here, and we should set it up for both mouse and joystick. So here I'll create 2 new inputs called camera X and camera Y. So I can just duplicate this mouse Y input to create a new input. So we can right click and select duplicate array element. All right. And I'll name this as camera X. So we want this to be controlled by the mouse. We'll create another one for the joystick. So here the type should be mouse movement, and I'll change the axis to x-axis because this is camera X. All right. So now we can just duplicate the camera X and we can create camera Y. So here the axis should be Y. All right. So next let's create camera X and camera Y for the joystick. So I'll just duplicate this camera Y element. Let me rename it to camera X. And the type of this one should be joystick axis. And for the axis, we'll select the 4th axis. So the 4th axis is the horizontal axis of the right analog stick. All right. So now in case of joystick, we also need to tweak a few settings over here. So let's look at how the left analog stick is set up for the horizontal input. So here you can see that the sensitivity of the input is 1. And for the value of the dead, they're using 0.19. So we can also do the same for the right analog stick for our camera X input. So I'll change the sensitivity to 1. 0.1 will be a perfect value for mouse, but it'll be really low for analog sticks. So let's change this to 1. And we'll also change the value of dead to 0.19. So this will be the dead zone. If the value is below it, then it will be mapped to 0. All right. So we have set up the camera X input for the joystick. So next let's duplicate this and create the camera Y input. All right. So the Y axis of the right analog stick is the 5th axis. So let's change the axis to 5th axis. All right. So that's all we have to do. So now we have a new input which can be controlled by both the mouse and the joystick. So let's use this input for rotating our camera. So in the camera controller script, instead of using mouse X and mouse Y, we'll use camera X and camera Y. All right. So now we should also be able to rotate the camera using the right analog stick. So let's go ahead and test that. All right. So now I'm also able to rotate the camera by using the right analog stick. Okay. So now we can also control our third person controller using a joystick. So I'll stop the video here and I'll see you in the next video.